All right, so I am in Key West, Florida, and I'm here to announce my latest transition in my cancer journey. About 10 days ago, on December 27th, 2018, my oncologist, my cancer doctor, officially declared me in remission. What this means is not that I'm cured of my cancer, but that they've eliminated all the cancer that they can detect, and they've done as much for me as possible to make sure the cancer comes back. So congratulations, Glenn. I'm cured, or as close to cured as I can get. And I'm not really jumping up and down about this, because people who have had cancer can get it again. And my chances of having this kind of cancer again are much higher than the general population, because there could be a few little errant cancer cells floating around in my body. So let me recap what's happened so far. In April and June of 2018, April, May, and June in 2018, I had kind of this mystery illness where I had some strange numbness in my jaw, and I became very tired. I didn't have a lot of energy. And I was working with my doctor to try to figure out what it was, and we were kind of looking at the jaw to figure if there was some sort of block in the nerve going up to this jaw here. And you know, so we started exploring that until finally at the end of June, I had a lump on my chest, and my doctor was very alarmed about this lump, and he scheduled me first for a chest x-ray, which turned up nothing, and then for a CAT scan, which was scheduled for July 10th. And in the meantime, I went off and did this thing that I usually do, which is to driving cars and pets across the country. And I was driving an RV in Colorado on the 4th of July when I blacked out on the highway. I had a seizure on the highway. And this was a result of a big old tumor in my brain behind my right eye over here. So at the time, my eye was kind of bulging out, and there was pressure on my brain, on my right temporal lobe, which caused the seizure, which caused me to black out while driving on the highway. Now, the good fortune is I didn't die in that accident. Obviously, I'm still here, and I wasn't seriously injured. I was on a highway that had walls on either side, and somehow I coasted to a stop. But still, they had to break a window to get me out, and I did not become conscious until I was in an ambulance going to a hospital in Colorado, where they finally did the CAT scan and found cancer all over my body, so everywhere. And there was cancer here, all throughout my torso, basically head to toe. I was able to get myself, after 2 days in the hospital there, I got myself back to Boston, where my health insurance and my doctor are, and they finally gave me a diagnosis, which is lymphoma, or cancer of the blood that tends to collect in the lymph nodes. And the lymph nodes are all over the body, so I had tumors all over my body. And it looked at this point that I was going to die, because from my standpoint, this cancer had metastasized. It had gone all over my body. It had gotten into my brain. There was this big tumor in my brain. So I was kind of preparing for the end in July, and that's when I recorded my earlier videos about my cancer. So I recorded 2 earlier videos, one from the hospital bed in Colorado, and another from just before I entered the hospital in Boston. So I entered a good hospital. I ended up, for some reason, at Beth Israel Hospital, at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, in the nest of hospitals in Boston. And it turned out to be the perfect place for me, because they knew what to do. This was an extremely virulent form of lymphoma. Not just lymphoma, but a dangerous form of lymphoma that was very aggressive, grew very fast. But because it was an aggressive form of lymphoma, they could also use an aggressive form of therapy, which beat the thing down. Originally, I was scheduled for radiation therapy at one hospital. At Beth Israel, they decided I didn't need that. I just needed chemotherapy. So chemotherapy put me in bed. So I was in bed in the hospital for 39 days in my first stay at the hospital, from July 11th through the end of August. I was in the hospital and being treated with chemotherapy, which is a lot less painful than it sounds. Chemotherapy is they fill you full of drugs, and the drugs are designed to kill everything that grows. So it kills your blood cells, white and red blood cells. It prevents your hair from growing. It stops other things that would normally grow stop growing. The skin becomes more vulnerable, and you become more vulnerable to all sorts of infections because of the chemotherapy as opposed to the cancer. So within 2.5 months, the chemotherapy worked. It removed all the visible cancer from my body, and it's a dramatic view between the before CAT scans and the after CAT scans, showing that now there's cancer everywhere and now there's cancer nowhere. So by September 20th, I was essentially cured of cancer, but they kept me on the chemotherapy for another 2 months because you want to kill any invisible cancer cells. So I was in the hospital off and on for 79 days. I was in the hospital, and I came to enjoy the hospital. The hospital was a lot of fun because I liked the staff. I met very few cancer patients because they're all in their own rooms. But I got to know the staff at Feldberg 7 very well, and they came to seem like my family. It was, in fact, the place that I've spent the most time in one location in 10 years. So for 10 years I've been a traveler. I've been all over the world. And I've never spent very long, more than a couple of weeks in one location. And now I'm required to spend 79 days with real people. And it was an interesting experience. You know, I've had all sorts of virtual relationships with people in different parts of the world. But for 79 days, I had real relationships with real people, and I held up pretty well, I think. It was nothing but pleasure. I mean, cancer is supposed to be this painful experience, and I experienced very little pain. What I did experience is weakness. For example, at certain parts of the cycle of chemotherapy, I can barely get out of bed. I can barely walk one circuit around the hallways. But in terms of pain, there really wasn't much. And in terms of my brain was still able to function. Even though they're killing my red blood cells and killing my white blood cells, my brain is still capable of functioning. As long as I'm sitting in my bed, I can still type away at my computer. Occasionally there were periods when I had to sleep too much, which cut into my creativity and my productivity, but otherwise this was a fairly harmless cancer experience. It was made better by the fact that I do not have a family, do not have a significant other, and so there's no one worrying about me and no one I have to worry about. It was just worrying about my own survival, which is manageable. I was out of work for 6 months and unable to generate income. And I put up a GoFundMe page for people to help me out. And to my surprise, I have some fans out there and I have some supporters out there. And they donated a total of $5,000 to my cause, which I'm endlessly grateful for. And it's enough cash to just get me through this 6-month period without work. And now that I'm out into the world and earning money again, I'm going to be okay. I've got debts, I've got credit card debts, I've got medical debts, but they're manageable. My insurance company put out about $500,000 on my behalf. In other words, I'm a prime profit center for both Beth Israel Hospital and a prime deficit center for my insurance company, which rated me among the top 5% of clientele for spending the insurance company's money. So by the end of November, chemotherapy was over. I needed another month to recover because I was very weak, not from the cancer, but from the chemotherapy. I could barely walk. So that took me through the end of December. At the end of December, they conducted the final tests, the CAT scans. They examined my head. They took my head off. They put it in the machine, ran some scans on it, put it back on again. And after all those tests were run on December 27th, my doctor declared me in remission. About the side effects of my cancer treatment, basically my brain has continued to function all this time. I had some very interesting effects when I had this tumor in my brain, which turns out not to be a tumor in my brain, but a tumor outside my brain pressing in, which makes a huge difference in my prognosis. It pressed on the left temporal lobe and embedded in the right temporal lobe, and embedded in that lobe is something called the amygdala, which is a controller of negative emotions. And for example, if you feel anxiety, it comes in some way from the amygdala, a little almond-shaped organ that's embedded in the right temporal lobe and is connected to the lower brain stem. So this organ was affected in the early part of my treatment, the first month and a half when I still had that tumor. It was squeezing the amygdala, and that made me feel really good in that it was suppressed all the anxiety and all the bad feelings that I should have had during this tough part of my period. It's like I got the best form of brain damage at exactly the right time. Now you just witnessed my only little side effect that has lasted beyond my cancer, in that my balance isn't very good. I can stand up on a flat surface, but I can't walk up and down stairs very well. My legs have only about half the muscle mass that they once did because I spent 79 days in a hospital bed. And I feel like I only have about half of the nerve endings that I normally have in my feet. So there are areas of numbness on my feet, and that makes it difficult to walk, difficult to stand still, to stand up. But I can still get around. So it's nothing serious. It's nothing I can't live with. It's very slowly getting better, and hopefully I'll be climbing mountains a year from now. But I believe it'll take me at least a year before I can walk over rough surfaces and climb mountains and things like that. That's a relatively small price to pay for living, for continuing to live. This cancer could come back at any time, so I have to make the best I can with the time I have left. I may have only a couple of years left before the cancer comes back. Maybe the next time it's not treatable. So I have to live life for today. I have to work on the projects that are most important to me for today, not knowing how long I'm going to live, but who of us does? Who among us really knows how long they're going to live? So what did I learn from my cancer experience? I don't know, probably not a lot, because I'm back to where I was before. I'm working on a book that's about demography. I was working on a book on cancer while I was in the ward, and now I've set that aside and working on my demographic doom book. I'm coming back to that with fresh eyes and starting that over again. Kind of basically rewriting it from scratch, but with more developed ideas. You can see that at demographicdoom.com. I learned who my friends were, who my real friends are, because they came out of the woodwork to support me, to give me that, contribute to my GoFundMe page, but also to remain engaged to me. So a very important part of my therapy, and what made this a pleasant experience to me, is that I could post everything on Instagram and Facebook. For example, they cut open my chest to insert what's called a portacath, a port that allows them to poke my chest to get to my bloodstream. And I posted the my surgery on Instagram. And people responded. My true friends responded and appreciated the dark humor of my situation and commented on my posts. And then there's the other people who sent me thoughts and prayers. And you've heard about thoughts and prayers because they pop up whenever there's a school shooting. So when there's a school shooting, people write on Twitter, you know, I'm sending my thoughts and prayers to all the people of this town that has been impacted by this shooting. And people sent me their thoughts and prayers too. They said they're praying for me and they're thinking about me and they're sending me positive vibes. And once they do that, once they say that they're sending me their prayers and they're praying for me, I know they're disengaging. It's kind of a hypocrisy. When you're turning things over into God's hands, that means it's not your problem anymore and you can withdraw. So the people who send me prayers, they vanished. And the people who aren't particularly praying for me but are amused by the things that I'm amused by, they stuck around and they helped me through this. And I'm very grateful for these people who are just there, who just commenting on my Facebook posts, because that helped me a great deal. Other than that, it was just a 6-month hiatus from whatever I'm doing now. I'm back to my usual haunts, which is driving for a living and collecting frequent flyer miles, using the frequent flyer miles to go overseas. I'm kind of running out of countries to go to. I've got to 87 countries, and I think I'll stop around there, around 90. That's quite enough. The other countries are ones that I'm not so keen to visit. I'm going to the Canary Islands at the end of January. You're going to get some videos from the Canary Islands. At any time, cancer could come back, but I will know what to look for. This little numbness in the jaw was a mystery. Now, if cancer comes back, I feel a little lump, I feel something wrong in my nervous system, I know what to do, and I'm racing right back to my ward, Feldberg 7, racing right back to Beth Israel so we can handle it. My death will not be instantaneous. So even if I were to get cancer again, I have more months to go, because they're going to try more forms of chemotherapy, more forms of therapy on me to try to beat this thing, which means I'm not going to instantly vanish. So I'll be kicking around. You still have Glenn Campbell to kick around for a while, unless something else kills me, a car accident or something kills me. So things are doing good. I want to thank everyone who supported me, and that's all I can think of. This is Key West. This is Smathers Beach, which is the best beach. It's just a little, you know, it's only in the 70s and it's not quite swimming weather, so I don't think I'm going to swim today, but maybe next time. In the meantime, heading back to the mainland today and back to the usual. So thanks for your support, and we'll be in touch. It's like bath water once you get into it.